How many times have you heard the saying, "You are what you eat"? We often think that the most important part of our nutrition is the food that we eat. But I'm here to offer you a new vision of nutrition. To understand this vision, you'll need to put on a different set of glasses, a bit like what I did when I discovered Ayurveda in my final year of studying nutrition at university. So behold the lenses of Ayurveda, a medical system with roots in India that offers us a new way to look at the world. It teaches us how to live in this world and not just manage and treat ill health as it occurs. When we studied nutrition at university, we had to learn about the scientific makeup of food, how many grams of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates different foods had, how different population groups required different amounts of each constituent, what happened, for example, if you had too much protein or you didn't get enough carbohydrates. The details were endless. And while all these things do have an impact on our nutrition, there's a lot more to the meal that we eat beyond proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Plus, remembering details and counting was not my forte. Understanding Ayurveda meant that food, nutrition, and health was a lot more straightforward. Ayurveda is about understanding general principles and applying them to individual scenarios rather than remembering countless details. So let's rethink the way we look at nutrition beyond these food groups of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Any food or meal that we eat affects us because of 4 things: how that food has been made, what's in that food, how we eat it, and how we digest it. So let's understand this new vision of nutrition as we cook along together. Cook. That's the key to the first point. Before you sit down to eat any meal, ask yourself this: how much of this did I prepare myself? We live in a society that's filled with convenience. Gone are the days when we used to eat fresh meals 3 times a day. Convenience oozes out of each part of our day, whether we, grab some instant oats for breakfast, go to the local cafe for a spot of lunch, or, grab a frozen meal from the freezer, ready for our dinner. Don't get me wrong, I've resorted to all of these different things at different points in my life, but I can tell the difference each time. The consciousness with which we cook our meals has a big impact on the food that we're about to eat. When you cook yourself at home using fresh ingredients, you have control over the thoughts and emotions that are going into your meal. When we resort to foods from restaurants or frozen foods or packaged foods for a long period of time, we compromise on the energetics of the meal. When you go to a restaurant, how do you know the meal in front of you has been prepared with love? Maybe the chef had a fight with his employer right before he was about to make your meal. Was the frozen food that you're about to eat prepared by a person or a machine? As Black Eyed Peas famously sang, "Where is the love?" Start where you are. If you're accustomed to eating frozen food every weeknight, then just pick one night and make that a night where you cook a meal from scratch using fresh ingredients. Don't set the bar too high. The more you start to cook with fresh and whole ingredients and rely less on processed and packaged foods, you'll feel the difference in your body and mind. And this will be the impetus for you to keep cooking more and more using fresh ingredients. So now we know how to cook our meal. Next, we should focus on what should actually be in our meal. And this is the part of nutrition that most of us are familiar with. Ayurveda originated thousands of years ago, long before most of the foods that we're used to today even existed. So our ancestors used what was available to them, a focus on fresh and whole foods. And in our pursuit of convenience, of trying to simplify life and spend less time in the kitchens and more time on our screens, it's actually the reverse that's going to keep us healthy. And a lot of modern nutritionists and food writers and journalists are saying the same thing. Michael Pollan writes in his book, Food Rules, a very simple formula on what to eat. He simplifies it in 7 words for the layman. Eat foods, not too much, mostly plants. And that's what we should focus on. Focus on whole foods rather than nutrients. So what should we eat? We're in an age of information overload, and there are new health guidelines being thrown at us every single day. Eat more protein, choose healthy fats, follow an intermittent fasting routine, follow the keto diet. Just hearing all of these ideas is confusing. The Ayurvedic authors were actually geniuses, and they devised a way that we can understand our nutrition and know that we're getting the adequate amounts of nutrients in our meal by using an index that we all have. Just by using our tongue, and using its function of taste and ensuring that we get all 6 tastes in each meal, we can know that we're going to have a balanced and healthy nutrition. It sounds a little bit too simple, doesn't it? But hear me out. So the 6 tastes are a combination of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Each taste is made up of 2 or more of the elements. Our bodies are also made up of these 5 elements in varying proportions. So when we ensure that we're getting all 6 tastes in our diet, we are balancing our body, replenishing it with all of the elements, and we know that we're going to have a healthy nutrition, healthy diet to balance our body out with all the nutrients that it needs. So what are the 6 tastes? They're sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And when you choose foods that are in their natural state or as close to their natural state as possible, i.e. foods with minimal ingredients, then you can actually get your tongue to perceive the taste of the food and then determine what it is, whether it's sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, or astringent. So don't think that you need to get your sweet taste just from a bar of chocolate or your sour from Sour Patch Candy or something like that. Look to getting your taste fulfilled from whole and natural foods. Our society has evolved in such that we overemphasize the sweet, sour, and salty foods. So when you're creating your meals every day, give a little bit of extra love to those bitter, astringent, and pungent foods. On the screen, you'll see a variety of foods of each different taste to help you choose which one you can add to your particular meal. Okay, so now we know how to cook our meal, what to put in it. Next comes, how do we eat? Of course, this one seems a little bit redundant, right? We take our meal, put it on a plate, using a spoon or a fork or even our hand, put it in our mouth, chew, and then swallow. Simple. Yes, of course, this describes the physical act of eating, but in an age where we glamorize multitasking and we try to achieve 100% efficiency in everything that we do, we often lump eating together with something else. We'll eat in front of our computers while working or on the run, and in doing so, we fail to honor eating as an act of nourishment for our body. Ayurveda teaches us that the way we eat affects how we digest and assimilate that food. Think about it. When you're eating on the run or quickly eating your lunch in front of your computer, you don't really enjoy that meal. You just do it to tick a box. But when you sit down around the dinner table with loved ones and really savor each bite, that meal feels nourishing and satiating. So take the time out that when you eat, that's all you do. You just eat. Call it mindful eating. Don't try to do it while on your way to work, while finishing deadlines, while watching TV, while scrolling on your phone. When you eat, just eat. When studying nutrition, new theories would come out from time to time. Some said to eat 2 to 3 large meals a day. Other people would say eat 4 to 5 smaller meals a day. So which was it? Again, Ayurveda made everything simple. And Ayurveda says to eat when you're hungry. When my teacher first told me this, I wanted it to be more complicated. I wasn't happy with such a simple answer. But really, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. When you eat when you're hungry, your body actually secretes digestive juices, so you're priming your body to best digest everything that you're about to eat. Eating when you're hungry ensures that you'll properly digest everything that you take in through the mouth. And when you come to the act of eating, engage all your senses in it. Make the meal visually appealing by including lots of different colors. You can smell the aroma of the food while you're eating it. Engage your nose in that way. Of course, the tongue is the star of the show because it's actually tasting the meal, but you can hear the different sounds of the meal utilizing your ears. And try and always use your hands when you're eating. Using your hands makes you feel more connected to the meal because you don't have the mediation of the fork or the spoon getting in the way of the experience. And did you know that there's also lots of nerve endings in your fingertips which aid in digestion, which are connected to your digestion? So make the act of eating something in which you engage all of your senses in. It's a complete meditative process. Our meals have the potential to nourish us on a deeper level. And when we utilize all of our senses in the process, we're unlocking this potential, and eating then becomes a meditation. And after all the cooking and eating, your body does the digesting. This is where the last quarter of the magic happens. You can cook the food with the most fresh ingredients in the world. You can cook the food with all the love in the world. You can eat the food in a meditative state. But ultimately, it's up to your digestion on how that food affects you. It's a bit like the sorting hat from Harry Potter. But instead of putting you into different houses, your digestion categorizes what you eat into wastes or nutrients. This is if your digestion is working well. It's easy for me to be here today and say a good digestion equals good health. But what does it actually mean to have good digestion? There are 4 key indicators that you can use to assess whether you're having a good digestion day. Number 1, you should be having a normal appetite with a pleasant sensation of hunger, not those hangry vibes that you sometimes feel. Number 2, you should have a clean tongue and clear breath. Number 3, you should have proper and regular bowel movements. And number 4, you should feel a sense of energy, clear-headedness, and satisfaction after you eat your meal. Now, understanding your digestion is beyond the scope of just one video, but you can understand and have an awareness of how important digestion is, and this is something that you'll be able to grasp in a few minutes. So pay close attention to what your digestion is telling you when you eat something. It's not called gut instinct for no reason. One man's food is another man's poison. Just because celery juice worked for your neighbor doesn't mean it has to work for you. And this is where Ayurveda shines. We're all different, and so should our nutrition be. Ayurveda teaches us to use the gauges in our own bodies, our tongues and our digestion, to figure out the best foods for us. It teaches us that food affects us beyond just its chemical constituents. How we cook the food, how we eat the food, how we digest the food, all of this has an important impact. It's teaching us what we inherently know. So really, it's a journey of rediscovery.